Hello everybody, welcome to Nostalgia Goggles. I'm Cass, also known as Retro Gaming Nerd, and welcome back to the 40th anniversary of Mario thing that I'm doing. I try to do every month a Mario video, and celebration is something you do with these kind of anniversaries, but another thing you do is reflection, and that's what today is. This was initially going to just be a video that had nothing to do with this, but I think it's about time to do it. I think it's right to do it. This episode means a lot to me, and so does this ape, for some reason, and you'll see that throughout the rest of this year, but this character means a lot, because of my grandma, actually. She passed away a couple years ago, but the things that I explain in this episode have been on my mind for a while, you know? So, I think that outside of celebrating, sometimes we just need to look back and, see, if the classic Donkey Kong was worth it. If you can't tell, Donkey Kong means a lot to me. It does. And outside of it being one of the first video games I've ever witnessed, it's because of this whole journey that I went on. So, with that being said, let's get on to the episode. When it gets right down to the gameplay of this game, it's practically unchanged, to my knowledge, of Donkey Kong. The real big difference is there's one missing level, and I honestly have no clue why that is for both NES versions. It may be because there's too many moving parts. I have not done my research, but I do know that it's missing. And in all honesty, I have no clue if it matters to most people. The NES version of this game is not the perfect version of this game, but for the person that I would have gotten this game for, they wouldn't have minded, I'm going to be honest. With the way that she played video games, it would have just been a quick hit of nostalgia and memory. Heck, I don't even know if she knew or would have known that the level is missing. All that matters is if it worked and it looked and played similarly, and it does. I think that it's remedied today because you do not need this version. And Nintendo constantly releases Donkey Kong. There's even one now on the Switch and Switch 2. They have the same eShop. That is the perfect version. And if she was around today, I think she would enjoy that. But at the time that she was around, all I really had was the NES version. Or would have had, I guess is the way to put it. And I think that that would have worked out, right? I think that that would have been good enough, and even for people of that time, that would have been good enough. Because it does a great job, in my opinion, at emulating what was there in the arcade. And it was way better than the Atari version and many other versions, to my knowledge. It's like having the arcade in your home, which is one of the strongest, I feel, selling points of the NES. And it's happened a lot of times throughout the NES's history where the arcade version clearly looked better, but it didn't matter, right? What mattered is that you had it in your home. You had it then and there, and I think that there's nothing like that today because games are so good that there's never going to be that, arcade difference outside of, Mario Kart, right? But even then, that's a whole different game. Even then, it feels like arcades are borrowing from home titles, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, they have that, but, it's a different experience, but it was originally home first, but that's not what's important. What's important is that I feel like she wouldn't have cared. This would have been cool, and that's all that really matters. This game looks and sounds very similar to the arcade version of Donkey Kong, enough that I don't think it would have mattered to most people when it comes to the home port. There probably is some major differences with the presentation. Obviously, the missing level is completely gone, so that's a big one. But I feel like this one emulates very much of what the arcade game was. And I think that that's the most important thing. I feel like there's probably sounds or something that is not one-to-one, but I just honestly can't tell you. I am not that familiar with the arcade version of Donkey Kong as much as I want to be, because I feel like this one is the one that I probably would have spent more time on if I knew it existed. I didn't have access to an arcade at the time. And now I do definitely have the access to that thanks to Nintendo. I can't tell you the difference. I honestly cannot tell you the difference. I feel like there has to be more of an intimate knowledge that I just don't have. But I also, like I said before, I don't think it matters. Like I said in the other one, what really matters is if it looks close enough. And let's be honest, it looks better than the Atari port. And that's really what matters. So, instead of me repeating myself, I think that the presentation on this game is great. And I think that it does a good job at being Donkey Kong. Let's move on to accessibility. So when it gets right down to it, I keep saying Donkey Kong Classic because that's the one that I owned at the time. But there are 2 releases of Donkey Kong for the NES. There is multiple ways to play Donkey Kong, and it varies from quality to quality, but let's start with Donkey Kong Classic. Donkey Kong Classic is a little more than Donkey Kong proper. It was Donkey Kong, the NES version of it, and also Donkey Kong Jr. And yeah, that's what makes this one important. The other one is just straight up Donkey Kong. This one is very reasonable. You'll pay about $19 to $25. There is obviously higher prices you can pay for this one, but it's very reasonable. With that being said, if you want the arcade classics version of Donkey Kong, it seems to be a little bit more rare, and it seems to be a lot pricier. I've seen some for $50, but also people on eBay are asking for stuff like $80 to $90 for this game, and don't do it, right? I feel like this game is probably overpriced because it says NES Classics versus the other one. The other one's just a better value, but if you really, really want to know the best way to play this game, it's very simple. It's either if you have a Nintendo Switch or Switch 2, you could get NSO for whatever price it is and play it that way, play both games, Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong, 2. Or, you could simply just buy the arcade version, which is $9. It comes with, all versions of the game, at least arcade-wise. And, international Japan, and there's another one, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. And those are the better ways to get your hands on it. But at the time, this was it for me, right? I mean, there was the Wii Shop, but I just wasn't aware of it at the time. So, and even if I was, it was hard for me to get my parents to buy something like that. For them, games had to be tangible, so it was harder to get them to get games online. Also, they just didn't trust the website. I don't know. It was a different time. You have to remember, these are my grandparents. So, with that being said, let's move on to the goods and the bads. I think this game is phenomenal. And it gives me something. Something too late, but it gives me something. I've been collecting video games for a long time, and I feel so weird that I didn't know about this one. It kind of hurts because of how well done it is. Because looking at this game, I realize this is exactly what they've been looking for. This is the game that they wanted to play for a long time. Mind you, if you're watching this and you made it this far, thank you. But I want you to understand that the person we're talking about is my grandma. I know that there was a Nintendo Wii Shop version, but I didn't know that at the time. I didn't understand how digital gaming worked, right? I didn't understand how digital shopping and gaming worked. So I couldn't just tell them, hey, it's on the Wii, despite the fact that they owned one. The only thing I knew is old games, and I guess something in my brain never thought to look for a Donkey Kong game. And I don't know why that is, but this is it. This is the game that they were probably looking for. There's so many other ways that they could have played this game, but I feel like this is the one that would have overlapped with my interest and would have gotten their attention in some way, I have no clue. I'm talking about a hypothetical that only matters to me, but I think that with that being said, this game would have been it. And that's all that really matters. This game does a really, really good job at being Donkey Kong. And that's all that it really needs to be, is Donkey Kong. Yes, it's missing a level, but I feel like for me, now it doesn't matter. Me at the time, it wouldn't have mattered. And I feel like a lot of people that probably played this game, it wouldn't have mattered. I think that it would have just been cool to have Donkey Kong in your home. Imagine, if you will, being a kid in the 80s or whenever this game was released, right? Having a very, very close Donkey Kong game. But just imagine that, having Donkey Kong in your house. And imagine having the game Donkey Kong in your house without having to have an arcade or without having to compromise with the Atari version. Imagine having that game. Imagine having that at all times. That would have been really cool. It's something that doesn't matter today, but it's something that would have mattered back then. And I only wish in my time when I knew of this that I would have been able to share it with her. I'm not as sad about it. It's really nice that I got to talk to her about it. You know? It may seem sad in this one, but I'm happy that I found it. I'm happy that I found this version. It would have been inevitable. I found it years ago, but when I found it, it was too late. And in some ways, it reminds me a lot of her. It's why I'm doing this. It's funny that this stupid little game made by Nintendo, all forms of it have come in my life in some way and have shifted it from Donkey Kong Country 2 being one of the first video games that I can remember to Donkey Kong being my grandma's favorite game. It's interesting that this ape, in some way or form, has been in pivotal times of my life, and I'm kind of grateful for it. As much as I wish she could have seen the game, I feel like it wouldn't have mattered. The story she told me about it, the search that she had for it, is enough for me. And that's all that really matters. That being said, let's move on to the bad. So, I feel like the worst thing about this game is the missing level. That's it. I don't really care, if I'm gonna be honest. It would have been something that would have mattered if, I guess, we didn't have the other versions, but like, to be honest with you, this version that I'm talking about is the pricier version in comparison. So like, it doesn't really matter. You can play Donkey Kong on the NSO, or you can just cough up $9 to play the arcade version, about $9. So in reality, it doesn't matter anymore. And it probably mattered to some people, and that's fair, but today it doesn't, because it's not like this is the only way you can play Donkey Kong. The only reason why I'm talking about this one is because I feel a connection to it. So, you know, so that's about it. With that being said, let's move on to the final thoughts. Normally, I would have the game. There's been an occasional time where I haven't, either because it's downloaded or whatever, and this time is kind of interesting why I don't have the game. You see, if you've been watching the channel, you'll understand that me and my partner had to move from state to state, and we had a whole bunch of NES games, but we left them behind. And I kind of didn't play half of those games. This one would have been one that would have been nice to have. I do have some of that old collection, but for some reason I didn't grab it, Donkey Kong, and I don't think I ever will again. Not because it's not a good game, but just because I don't want to collect NES games anymore. Now, you're probably wondering, how are you going to come back from that? You're going to say, is it worth it to have that version? And the answer is still, yeah. Nintendo kind of saved me on this one, with NSO. And I think that that's nice. Now, yes, owning it is better, obviously, because you have the physical game, but sometimes, you know, collecting isn't everything. Sometimes you don't need to have a physical version of something, because if that was true, then the WiiWare or Wii Shop wouldn't have worked out, right? And I think that I don't know, I just don't think I need it. If I want to, I'll play it on NSO. I also bought it, as I said before, from the eShop, so either way, I think the game's worth it to play still to this day. It is something of a magical game because it's that interesting existence of an arcade game brought to the home. It's beautifully done, and I think that it's worth experiencing at least once. Donkey Kong is a classic for a reason, and I think that it's worth it to play. And I do wish she could have played it with me on the NES, but, you know, we had other great times, other great experiences. And that's all that really matters. If not for her and many other people, I probably wouldn't be on this whole gaming journey, and none of it had to do with Donkey Kong, really, so I got to experience a lot with her. You know, I got to. From so many other games, but it's very interesting that it all started with a funny little story from Donkey Kong. So, with that being said, I'll see you guys next time here on Nostalgia Goggles. Bye.